Mr. Chairman, the other day when the House adjourned, I was trying to prove that even qualitatively, the progress of the cooperative movement had not been satisfactory. Only primary credit societies have increased in number and size as compared to the other types of societies which actually contribute to the development of agriculture. Even the loan advanced by these primary credit societies is not being utilized for the purpose of development of agriculture, but instead it is being utilized in many cases for paying off the old debts and for their day-to-day expenditure, because many of the peasants are so poor and so in debt that the credit given by these credit societies, which is meant for the development of agriculture, is being utilized for other purposes. Madam, when we take into consideration the total amount of credits given by these credit societies and try to analyze the different strata of people who get the greatest advantage of all these credits, it will be realized that the upper strata of society are getting the greater share of the credits advanced by these societies. Now, when we take into consideration the classification of all these societies, which gives an insight into the development or the improvement of all these societies, it will be realized that only 15% of the total number of societies are classified under A and B class. That means that only 15% of the societies are sound and are able to stand on their own legs without the help of the government or whatever it might be. This has been stated by the estimate committee as well. So the remaining 85% of the societies are not functioning satisfactorily at all. 40,000 societies were revitalized in the second plan, and last year over 15,000 societies were said to have been revitalized. So it means that nearly 40,000 societies in the past 5 years were not able to function properly and were about to be liquidated, and so the government and the cooperative movement had to go and help them and revitalize them. But even after spending a lot for the revitalization of the societies, we do not know whether all these societies which were dormant are active again. When we take into consideration 15,000 societies, it will prove that the cooperative societies have not improved their position. Now, madam, this bill intends to set up a corporation in place of the existing board. We are told that this corporation will continue to perform the same function as the old board. We are told that the board has been working very well and has been responsible for the development of the cooperative movement all these years. If that is so, I cannot understand the necessity for setting up a corporation different from the board. If the functioning of the board has been satisfactory, what is the necessity for forming a corporation? What are the other advantages that we are having in forming a corporation? We could gather from the annual report on the corporation issued by the Ministry of Community Development and the speech of the Deputy Minister that the board has not been only an advancing agency for the respective states. Of course, they have set up 3 or 4 committees to go into the question of the various aspects of the cooperative movement. I think this job can be done by the ministry itself. Now, coming to the composition of this corporation and of the executive committee as it is envisaged in the bill, it is evident that it is practically riddled with government officials. There is only a sprinkling of non-official representation. I can understand the constitution of the board as it is done by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. We know the views with regard to democratic decentralization of the Minister of Food and Agriculture, but I cannot understand how the Minister of Community Development, who lays great stress on and gives importance to democratic decentralization, can copy the same old method that was there with regard to the composition of the old board and incorporate it in the new legislation, practically going back on his own recommendations that the cooperative movement must be representative of or carried on by non-official bodies. It is relevant at this time to point out that the Prime Minister himself has pointed out that the cooperative movement must be actually carried on by non-official bodies and that official interference must be the least. But when we take into consideration the composition of the corporation and the executive committee, non-official representation is practically negligible. So all these factors have to be taken into consideration. Again, before the bill was brought forward before the House, the government should have taken advantage to liberalize certain regulations taking into account the past experience and impediments in the growth of the cooperative movement. The government have tried to make this legislation more conducive to the development of the cooperative movement. Mr. Deputy Chairman, I would like to welcome the bill which has been introduced by our eminent leader Shri Pant, who has said that it should go to a joint select committee. I would particularly like to welcome the proposals regarding the removal of the ban on practice by High Court judges after retirement. The present position is that there is an absolute ban on their practice, and the result is that courts are finding it increasingly difficult to get a suitable class of lawyers to accept seats on the benches of the courts. It is necessary, it is vital for the preservation of democracy in this country, for the preservation of human freedom and for the protection of the average citizen in this country, that our high courts should continue to have the confidence, the respect and the esteem of the people. But if as a result of existing provisions the quality of our courts goes down, the quality of our democracy will suffer. It is a tribute to the patriotism of our bars that so far there has been no deterioration in the quality of our recruitment to the bench. Members of the bar who are enjoying good practice have considered it, in most cases, a patriotic duty to accept a judgeship when that has been offered to them. But after all, a man has to think of his future, and the position is that a member of the bar, when he is offered a judgeship, does not know what he will have to do with himself after he attains the age of 62. It is demoralizing to see retired High Court judges seeking re-employment after their retirement. The foundation of judicial independence in England or in any other democratic country, for that matter, it is life tenure of judges. It is not suggested that we can have a life tenure in the country. It may be that there was a case for a higher age limit when the Constitution was being framed. But we know that as people age quickly in our country, it will not be possible to have a life tenure. The foundation of the independence of the judiciary is that once a judge is appointed in Britain, he does not get any increment in his salary even when he is promoted to a court of appeal. He does not get any financial preferment. Now I should like to say a few words about the provisions regarding additional or temporary judges. The present provisions regarding ad hoc judges are very unsatisfactory. Our courts are in huge areas. In the court with I was associated for more than 7 years, we had, I believe, over 25,000 cases in area. Now these areas are largely a legacy of the past, and I can tell you that with all the speed that judges may possess, it is not possible for them with the existing number of judges to cope with the amount of work in our courts. Criminal work has increased, writ work has increased. Other classes of work have also increased. It is necessary to have additional judges for the disposal of areas. These areas, I hope, represent a temporary situation, but I cannot be sure of this. I do not think they represent a permanent phenomenon. Once these areas have been cleared off, it will be possible for us to fix or to determine the permanent strength of our courts with some degree of assurance. I am therefore glad that advantage is being taken now that the Constitution is being amended to provide for the appointment of additional judges. There were some legal doubts about what an ad hoc judge could or could not do, and it was therefore necessary that provisions for additional judges should be included in the amending bill. I hope that in appointing additional judges, care will be taken to appoint members of the bar who are not likely to revert to the profession after their term as additional judge is over. That is to say, appoint a man whom you are going to appoint as a permanent man in the initial instance, if you like, as an additional judge, and then confirm him as a permanent judge when the permanent vacancy occurs. Another suitable class of persons to be appointed as additional judges are our district judges. If you want a district judge to become ultimately a permanent judge of the High Court, you may appoint him in the initial instance as an additional judge or as a temporary judge. You can also invite retired High Court judges for definite periods to act as an additional judges. Particularly, this should be the case when a judge goes on temporary leave or on leave for a few months, for in that case it may be desirable to appoint a member of the bar to act in his vacancy. Because after the judge comes back to the bar, he gets possible advantage which his colleagues do not possess.